Hello, Nicholas Burling here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the trans presentation boomerang. If you don't know what that is, I'm not surprised, but stay tuned and you'll find out. The trans presentation boomerang is what I like to call it, and I'm referring to this phenomenon of trans people transitioning and going to this very extreme place in terms of their gender expression, and then sort of coming back to a more centrist position that feels more comfortable to them. And not everyone goes through this, but definitely a lot of trans people do, and it's something that I've been experiencing lately as well, so I wanted to talk about it. Basically, when you start transitioning, you want people to really know what your identity is, and you want them to get your pronouns right. You want them to understand that you are the person that you say you are. You want them to respect you. And one of the ways that people will go about doing that is making a very drastic transition. So in my particular instance, it was dressing in a very feminine manner. And I never went super extreme with it, but definitely more feminine than I will dress now. And it was all part of trying to make sure that people saw me as the woman that I saw myself as, and people respected me and understood that this is who I am. And it took me a while to come to terms with the fact that I don't need other people's validation in my life, and I can dress however I want to. It doesn't change the fact that I'm a woman. There are plenty of women in the world that don't dress according to stereotypical gender presentation, and this is sort of where I've ended up at the moment. And obviously styles in your life will change over time, and I'm sure that my style is going to be changing throughout the years as well. But with regard to trying to dress in a more feminine manner, that's something that I'm not putting as much emphasis on anymore. When it comes to the larger trans community as a whole, I can't obviously speak for everyone, and I never do in my videos, but what you'll find is that a lot of people do go through this, and it happens to varying degrees. So you might find a trans man trying to be hyper masculine, you might find a trans woman trying to be hyper feminine, and they might shift backward, or maybe that's just who they are and they're going to stay in that hyper masculine or hyper feminine presentation, and that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with being hyper feminine or hyper masculine. It's just not necessarily what everyone's comfortable with, and people sometimes go through that stage as a way of figuring out who they are, and also as a way of, like I said, trying to gain respect from the people around them and understanding from the people around them. A lot of people don't really understand the concept of trans people, for me specifically, because I'm going to use my experience a lot. They don't understand the idea of a trans woman transitioning, dating women, and wanting to present in a little bit more of a masculine way. And also, I've always had fairly stereotypically masculine interests. And again, people don't expect that of a trans person, because a lot of people have this idea that trans people are transitioning because it is some sort of stereotype that we're trying to adhere to. But the reality is that it's really just this internal sense of being. It has nothing to do with stereotypes. It's just who we are. Now, I say this can affect trans people, and I'm not forgetting non-binary people when it comes to this, because a lot of non-binary people will go through this as well in finding themselves, and it's not quite the same. It's not sort of these binary genders of switching from masculine to feminine. It's really all about finding something that you're comfortable with, and that's really what it's all about for all of us. But when it comes to the boomerang, as it were, that's the shift to very masculine or very feminine and then back a little bit. Whereas with a non-binary person, it's not so much a boomerang in that sense. It's more of perhaps presenting in a more bold way, or wearing clothing that they think really highlights the fact that they are not male or female. They're somewhere in between. And that is a slightly different experience, and definitely not one that I want to speak about as someone who hasn't experienced that. But it is something that I've heard about in terms of going to a style that may not be super comfortable, and then sort of coming back to something that's a little bit more comfortable, even if it might not be what people expect of a non-binary person, because there is no right way to be trans. Every person in the world, whether you're trans or cis, is unique. We have our own styles, we have our own interests, we have our own way of presenting ourselves to the world, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong about any of that. And none of that is a reason to invalidate people's gender identities. But what I really want to highlight here is that trans people can just be whoever they want to be, look however they want to look, act however they want to act, and that's totally fine. There's no right way to be trans, and we shouldn't be forcing trans people to adhere to certain ways of living in order to gain validity and respect. If you're someone who's trans and you're early in your transition, you might be watching this and you might still go through that boomerang effect, and that's perfectly fine. It's a natural process of trying to discover yourself. But also, I just want you to know that you don't have to push yourself to those extremes. You might feel like there's pressure to do that. You might feel like you just want to experiment. Whatever the reason is, you don't have to present yourself in any particular way. You can just be you. And sometimes that takes a while to figure out. And that's certainly something that I've been coming to terms with. I've definitely changed my styling a little bit. When I was working in a corporate environment, I was dressing in a much more feminine manner, and I was relatively comfortable with it, but I actually found that dressing in a more feminine manner was worse for my dysphoria, because it never felt like the clothing was right on me. It never felt like I was really comfortable in what I was wearing. It was always trying to make myself wear it because I thought it was what I was supposed to wear. I thought eventually I would become comfortable with it, but the reality was it just wasn't my style, and it was a process that I had to go through to discover what my style is and discover what I'm comfortable with. So what I'm wearing right now, whatever style you want to call it, it's maybe a little bit more butch. I don't really know. It's just something that I'm comfortable in. And you see me not wearing makeup. I've worn makeup in earlier videos, and I might in future videos too. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no issue wearing makeup. I have no issue wearing more feminine clothes. I'll probably wear dresses in the future as well. But in terms of everyday wear, this is something that I'm a little bit more comfortable in than, say, skinny jeans and a cardigan, which is something that I used to wear almost every day to work. So that's just my example, and like I said, if you're early in your transition, you're trying to figure this out, go for it. Do whatever you want to do, but also know that you don't have to do anything for anyone else. Just do what you're going to do for you. If this is the kind of content you like to see, as always, please hit the like button. If you want to see more content like this, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you get notified every time I post a new video. And until next time, have a great day.